Hello and welcome. My name is Zaffar Iqbal and you are watching the Mojo Story. In Qatar, 8 former Indian Navy personnel who were working for a private firm providing services to Qatari military and security agencies have been reportedly sentenced to death after over a year of detention. The charges against them have not been publicly disclosed. Indian government has expressed shock at the verdict and is actively working to secure their release, offering consular and legal assistance. Family members have reportedly appealed to the Indian government for help. MEA has released a statement which says, and I read, we have initial information that the Court of First Instance of Qatar has today passed a judgment in the case involving 8 Indian employees of Al Dahra company, the MEA said in that statement. It further added that we are deeply shocked by the verdict of death penalty and are awaiting the detailed judgment. We are in touch with the family members and the legal team, and we are exploring all legal options. It also said that we attach high importance to this case and have been following it closely. We will continue to extend all consular and legal assistance. We'll also take up the verdict with Qatari authorities. This is the statement of the MEA. Now, to discuss this, we're joined by an eminent panel. Let's introduce our guests. We're joined by Ambassador Prabhu Dayal. Welcome to the show, sir. Former diplomat and author. We're also joined by Captain D.K. Sharma, former spokesperson and Navy veteran. Welcome to the show, sir. And we are also joined by Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni. Welcome to the show, sir. If I may start with you, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, what do we know about the circumstances that led to the detention of these former Navy personnel and their sentencing in Qatar? Yeah. If you can unmute, sir.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you now.
As you mentioned, they are retired Indian naval officers. I
Right.
understand that they are highly decorated officers and that some of them had, in fact, commanded warships. They were working for a Qatar company, and this company was involved in some kind of training of the military personnel of Qatar.
Yeah.
Now, as you know, the Qatari intelligence is very closely involved with Pakistan's ISI.
Right.
Both the Qatari intelligence and the ISI had worked closely together to facilitate talks between the Taliban and between the Trump government, because the Trump government wanted a way out of Afghanistan. Qatar had facilitated that, and of course, the Pakistan's ISI was involved in working closely with the Taliban. So there is a network and close cooperation between ISI and the Qatari intelligence.
Yeah.
It is very clear to me that these charges against the 8 naval officers are totally fabricated. They are false charges because they have not even been made public. If
Yes.
there was some truth in it, why would they not have been disclosed? But they have not been made public. These are totally false charges.
Yeah.
They have been fabricated by the Qatari intelligence with the help of Pakistan's ISI, because the ISI wants to damage India's image. And it has found a way of doing so by involving these 8 retired naval officers in a false charge. So, India must do the utmost to get these 8 retired officers freed. It will need high level political intervention, because, of course, the Qataris will say, you know, what can we do? There's a court judgment. No, the Qatari government can free these persons because they have the authority to give political pardon. and it must be made clear to them that the relationship with India will definitely be very adversely affected if these eight retired naval officers are given, if the sentence is executed, that is to say, if these uh, eight officers have the death sentence carried out against them. It will be a very serious matter. I'm really shocked at hearing this. And I think the government of India must do everything possible to establish the highest level contact and get them free.
Hope of a appeal in a higher court now that this verdict has been pronounced. Uh, what is the way forward as far as legally pursuing this case is concerned?
Well, there is a court of appeal because this judgment has been given by the lowest court. So there is always the
Yeah,
scope for an appeal, and we must swing into action.
yeah,
These eight retired naval officers were kept in solitary confinement, and as a result, their ability to communicate their innocence was absolutely limited. The
yeah,
whole case smacks of mischief, and that
yeah,
mischief has been executed by the ISI through the Qatari intelligence and using the Qatari court system to carry out its nefarious objective. But the next level of appeal is there. We should see that they are given a proper hearing, and even if that doesn't work, we should not hesitate to use whatever political mileage and leverage we have with the Qatari government to get these eight retired naval officers free. We cannot see them executed in Qatar. That is not going to happen.
right. Captain D.K. Sharma, I was just thinking that charges have not been publicly disclosed. Does it make even more challenging for the Indian government to pursue this case?
Zafar, good evening, first of all.
Yeah, good evening.
The case is, now as complex as anything because the judgment which we are hearing without
Yeah,
knowing the charges are
yeah,
absolutely, it's shocking, unbelievable, incomprehensible. I don't know whether the trial has actually taken place, what has come out of it, because nobody knows. And let me tell you, they are all veterans who have done their bit for the Indian Navy and went
yeah,
out after voluntary retirement. Everybody has served 20 years, and for better prospects, they went out. And let me tell you, they were only imparting instructions through Al Dahra to the Qatari Defense Forces. They were so good, all of them. All of them are in their own instructor grading officers. Somebody has
yeah,
taught in the staff college, somebody has taught in
yeah,
the premier training establishments, and they have done the best of the appointments. Nobody can, unblemished careers for 20 years, and they have gone out for better prospects and helped that Navy so much. Probably, they became a threat to other
yeah,
instructors, to maybe
yeah,
the other people who were, contributing over there, because what we understand that there was a MOU with India that we will send our people who have retired and as a second career option over there, help them out in training over them, the Qatari Navy and other defense forces, whether it is on the simulators, whether it is in their training academies, or whether it is
mm,
on their assets. So suddenly this thing happens. You lift eight of them, you put them in the solitary confinement. Okay, be that as it may, they were lifted, and as per our, say whatever we got to know from the open sources, last August. After that,
yeah,
they were put in solitary confinement, as the ambassador has said. And then,
yeah,
the positive ray of hope came when they were removed from solitary confinement, and two were put in a cell.
yeah,
So we thought that the case is, now coming up, and we'll get to know what are the type of charges which have been framed against them, whether they are actual charges or all fabricated charges, as the ambassador is also saying. Because
yeah,
I can vouch for it, because I've served with them. I have served with 4 or 5 of them, and they are brilliant people. Brilliant people, let me tell you that. And had their and with unblemished careers. You
Yeah.
see, when you are not making it to the next rank and all, and as the general will bail me out on
Yeah.
this, if you have a choice and they did their bit of 20 years and went out, so there is nothing wrong
Yeah.
in it. But getting caught like this in a web where you don't know what you have done, that is, I think, I was always under the impression that our relationship with all the Middle East countries, and we had heft over
Yeah.
there. I mean, and you have seen it that we are very good on our foreign relations, but
Yeah.
seeing something like this, and also the press release from MEA saying shocking development, so it is a shock for us. It has just taken everybody of us aback, and I can just think of what would be happening with the families, their parents, that suddenly out of the blue you get a shock that there have been a capital punishment has been announced.
Right.
No words, no
Lieutenant,
words for that.
absolutely. Lieutenant General Sanjay Kulkarni, what is your take on it? How has Indian government so far responded to this situation? It's been more than a year. Do you think that all the diplomatic efforts have been made to secure their release up till now, till the time we are hearing this verdict, or more needed to be done? Can you hear us? Okay, we seem to be having some problem with the line there. But Ambassador
Chronological
Prabhu,
for
there, yeah. Please go ahead,
things
sir.
have been moving for such a long time. And so this
Yeah,
declaration, maybe, I don't know, it's very difficult to say so, since Qatar has been financing Hamas, there is no denying the fact that Qatar has been doing a lot this thing. They have a channel which is functioning. Whatever the reason may be,
right. We seem to have again some problem with the line there. But Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, if I may ask the same question to you, that have all the diplomatic efforts been made to secure their release thus far, or is this verdict very unexpected
the
and
port visits that keep going.
lot needed to be done to secure their release up till now?
You know, we were hopeful that the Qatari court would be fair in its judgment. And in
Yeah,
fact, we had said that we are not going to be interfering at this
yeah,
stage because the judicial
yes,
process is on.
yeah,
Now, the court's verdict has been given on the basis of the
yeah,
evidence which the Qatari authorities have presented. And that evidence has been formulated by the Qatari intelligence services. And they, in turn, have got the assistance of Pakistan's ISI
you're right.
for fabricating this evidence. There is
Yes,
no doubt in my mind that this evidence is all fabricated, and it is time the government of India really steps up the action and takes up the matter with Qatar at the highest level. I repeat, at the highest level, and we should make sure that these 8 officers are not executed on the basis of totally false cases. I'm sure that as well, as the captain was mentioning with his naval background, that the evidence against these people must be false because they were very highly decorated officers who wouldn't do anything in the nature of spying against the country where they were working. So, this is fabricated evidence, this is a false case, and India should do everything possible to get them released.
right. And India will probably do all that need to be done for their release. But Captain DK Sharma, would you agree that there is this ISI link that Ambassador Prabhu Dayal is hinting at, that is also to some extent responsible for the situation that we are in currently? They were detained in the first place, and now this verdict has come in.
Zafar, I would not like to hazard a guess on that, but I know for sure that our training teams are so good all over the world. So whether it is
Yeah.
Qatar or Singapore or any other country, wherever
Yeah.
our Indians are
Yeah.
imparting training, they are one of the
Yeah.
best, and they threaten
Yeah.
everybody else because of their professionalism, the way
Yeah.
they take up the cause, and the way they impart training and make the people capable of handling high duties. That is for sure. Indian training, whether it happens in India or we go abroad and do it, is class apart, and that is one of the reasons I can say for sure that they were becoming too popular, too prominent, that others probably were not able to match with them. That is my reading. I'm
Yeah.
not very clear about it, that whether it was ISI, left, right. I would not like to hazard a guess on that.
Right. Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, the point here is that this verdict has come in, and this will definitely have an impact on the relationship between India and Qatar. How do you think this will adversely impact the relationship between the two countries? We know that for the last 10 years or so, India has been reaching out to the countries in Middle East, and it generated so much of a goodwill there. But this particular incident will at least cause a major dent between the relationship between of the two countries.
Well, India has extremely good relations with the countries in the Middle East and, in particular, with the Gulf
Yeah,
countries Saudi
yeah,
Arabia, UAE, Oman, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar. All these countries enjoy a good relationship with us. But the Qatar government has been acting sometimes in a manner which is also not acceptable even to some of the other Gulf countries. Qatar was removed from the GCC for some time because
yeah,
of the fact that Saudi Arabia and UAE were not happy with the manner in which the Qataris were, sort of supporting um, terrorism. And I must tell you that even Egypt was extremely angry with Qatar because Qatar had supported the Muslim Brotherhood against the established government of Egypt at that time, which was trying to clamp down on these people. So the policy of the Qatar government has not been acceptable to many of the Gulf countries and other Arab countries. And where India is concerned, well, we have a good relationship. We have a large workforce. We have a large population of non-resident Indians there. They're happy, they're working. But certainly, if this judgment of the court is not overturned, and if the 8 retired Indian naval officers are not freed and sent back to India, then I'm afraid that the Indo Qatari relationship is going to be very adversely impacted because public opinion in India is going to be extremely angry. As it is, public opinion is shocked by the judgment of the Qatari court. Government of India is shocked. But if this sort of a sentence based on a false case, on the basis of fabricated evidence compiled by the Qatari intelligence with the support of the ISI of Pakistan, if this is allowed to go through, then I'm afraid the relationship is going to be very adversely impacted.
right. Captain DK Singh, DK Sharma, how do you see the situation developing here on? What are genuinely the options before India to pursue this case further?
I think the MEA will have to take it up very strongly. We will have to, flex our diplomatic muscle, and at least we should go in for appeal as soon as possible. And let's see and hope for the best. And the best of the lawyers should from the country should be now put to task, and make sure that things improve from here, and they are taken out from whatever hell they are undergoing over there.
Yeah.
It is. I know one part of the story, which is that these officers cannot do anything wrong. If they have
Right.
been framed, we have to put our teams together, put the best minds together, fly them over there, fight the case, get them back. For sure, I know they are not guilty of anything, and that is why we do not have any charge sheet in the open. How the case progressed, what turns it took, where what happened, and by the way, the owner of the company for which these guys were working, these veteran officers or
Yeah,
brothers were working, is free and roaming around. He is not being
right,
charged with anything. Only us, only the Indians, only the employees. I would
right,
say there has to be some fair game.
right. And it's bizarre that a group of employees have been put in detention and now sentenced, while as the owner of the company doesn't.
He
There's
walked
no
free.
blame on him. Yeah,
He walked free a few months back, and he
quite
has been
strange.
just told to wind up the company. That's it.
Right. Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, you are hinting at that, but looking at Qatar, the way it deals with its foreign policy, on one hand, we saw it negotiating between Americans and Taliban. Now it is sort of dealing with the negotiations of release of hostage in Gaza. It's secured a release of few hostages, and America has thanked it. It's behaving in an entirely different way compared to the other Middle Eastern countries.
Now, Zafar, I must tell you that Qatar pursues a very clever foreign policy. Qatar knows that the United States needs a mediator when it comes
Yeah,
to talking with the Hamas
yeah,
or earlier with the Taliban.
right.
And Qatar has placed itself into that role because,
Yeah.
for instance, it has leverage with Hamas, it had leverage with the Taliban.
Hmm.
Why does it have leverage with Hamas? Because it gives a lot of financial assistance to Hamas. Amongst all the countries of the region, the two countries which give the largest amount of financial assistance to Hamas are Iran and Qatar. So, when so much of assistance is given, naturally, uh,
Yeah.
Qatar has political leverage with Hamas. And it has tried to position itself as a country which can mediate between the US and, say, as I said, the Taliban earlier or Hamas now. But the fact is that Qatar has been supporting
Yeah.
organizations which pursue an extremist agenda like the Taliban, like Hamas. Qatar has been supporting them and it has been using its state controlled media, such as the Al Jazeera,
Yeah.
for projecting a view that Qatar is placed in a
Right.
position that it can play a role to mediate in conflicts. The fact of the matter is that Qatar is extremely tricky. It is playing a very dubious role. The West knows it, the United States knows it, but then the United States needs a mediator. When
Right.
Trump was there and he wanted to exit Afghanistan, he wanted to work out an agreement. And Qatar helped him to work out that agreement. You remember the famous Doha talks
Yes.
that were taking place.
Yes. Yes.
Now, again, in this conflict between the Israelis and Hamas, the United States is being convinced somehow by the Qatar authorities that they can play that role of a mediator. But as I said earlier, Qatar plays a very tricky and a very dubious role. Even some of the Gulf countries, like for instance Saudi Arabia, like UAE, do not trust Qatar, and they have had times when they had adverse diplomatic relations. These relationships were impacted very adversely, and
Yeah.
uh, Qatar was removed from the GCC. So, in other words, it is not trusted by its own neighbors. I know that it works very closely with the ISI, and for that reason, I'm extremely suspicious of how the Qatari intelligence has formulated this alleged evidence against the 8 Indian retired naval officers and submitted to the court. Let me also tell you that the Qatari courts will go by what the evidence is submitted by the intelligence. They pay attention to that, and therefore the judgment, in that sense, goes against our retired naval officers. But it is time for political intervention. The high level political leadership can overturn any judgment and deport the 8 Indian officers, and that will only happen if we are able to exercise a lot of political pressure, political influence on the authorities of Qatar.
Yes, in fact, in that press conference, when Qatari minister was asked about the closing of Hamas office, he said that that cannot happen because that's the channel of communication that has to be left open. But Captain D.K. Sharma, the fact is that there are so many Indians who are working in Qatar. Obviously, what would they be thinking at this point in time? 8 Indians who are detained and now sentenced. It has a broader impact.
It has. It has. There is no doubt about it. I was just thinking about that. It will cause a certain kind of fear that if we go outside our country, which means that there is nobody to look after you. And I mean, say, we never do these kind of things. This thought even never crosses your mind that you will go to a particular country and then after that you will be,
Yeah.
implicated in a false case, and then thereafter there
Yeah.
is no coming back. There is no justice. There is no openness about what is happening over there. It's got solid ramifications, and I'm sure that all of us are thinking on the same lines. So
Yes.
many of our diaspora is over there, and people are working with various industries over there, and there are some sensitive industries. There are some places where sensitive things happen. But does that mean that everybody, only the Indians, will be picked up and executed like this for a fault of anybody or no fault of theirs?
Right.
I fail to understand that what has happened. It's been a very, very trying year for all of us in the Navy, at least I can tell you, Zafar.
Yeah.
Everybody was praying that today morning when we came to know that the final verdict or some kind of decision is coming out. You can see to this, go to the social media and seeing
Yeah.
everybody, up with their hands up, in prayers that now
Yes.
something good will come out. But nobody expected this. That is what is appalling. I have no words actually. I'm just listening to you guys. And think about their families, they have their children, and suddenly they come to know that they will never come back.
Yeah. And the families have in fact
What?
appealed the Indian government and the Prime Minister. But do you agree with the Ambassador Prabhu Dayal that political intervention is needed at the highest level to resolve this matter?
Look, Zafar, for whatever little I know, there was a tremendous amount of effort which was going on. I'm privy to a little bit of it, and as you have seen the regular briefings, I was just talking to one of the senior reporters of PTI. Every briefing, this question has been asked to the official spokesperson of MEA, and he has always given an answer in the positive that things are moving and they are, being handled at the appropriate level. Now, what else do you want to know? And now, if you get to know that suddenly everything has been, closed, books closed, uh, verdict given, unacceptable,
Right.
unacceptable. It has to be taken
Abs-
up all over again, as the ambassador is saying, and we must appeal in the next higher court and take it to the highest court, because
Right.
we know for sure there is some nefarious design behind all this. This is totally unacceptable. Let me tell you that.
Right. Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, of course, it's unacceptable, but there must be some lessons that must be learned here. It is a series of events that has happened. It's been more than a year.
I don't get your question. Could you explain it a
No,
little bit?
I'm saying that the way the entire thing was dealt with, that they went there and then nobody knows the reason what happened. They were put in solitary confinement. Then two of them were put together. Then we get briefings from the MEA, and now suddenly it has come as a shock. There must be some sort of lesson that must be drawn in it to course correct the future action that had to be taken for their release.
Well, the courts have a system. And I don't think that India could have prevented that system from playing out. Of course, there had been some statements by the spokesperson of the External Affairs Ministry that because it's a judicial process, they would not like to interfere at this stage.
Yeah.
But anyway, now that there is a judgment, we are fully entitled to appeal against that judgment. And not only are we entitled to, but we have to appeal. And as Captain Sharma was saying,
Yeah.
even if it takes going to the next level and the level above that or whatever, and then if it necessitates going even to the highest political level, we should do it. We cannot have our retired naval officers implicated in a false spying case where I'm sure the ISI has been playing a very mischievous role in fabricating the evidence. And we cannot let these 8 retired naval officers be executed. We have to do the utmost to get them released.
Captain D.K. Sharma, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, thanks so much for joining us. We'll have to leave it here, and we hope that steps will be taken to ensure the release of all 8 of them as soon as possible. Thanks so much for joining
Thank
us,
you,
and
Zaffar.
thanks for watching the Mojo Story.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.